Okay, we're now going to look at something a little bit different outside of the things that can be directly applicable to the game, and this is blue ocean strategy. Now, this came about as a result of a book that was published about 2006 by Professor Chan Kim and Professor Renee Mauborgne, both of whom have names that have been difficult for me to pronounce. But these people are quite bright. They work at INSEAD, which is a French business school with a very, very strong reputation. And they put together this book, which they call Blue Ocean Strategy. And if you're interested in getting it, you can find all of the chapters in this book online by pulling down Harvard Business Review articles on each of the chapters in the book. So just go out and look under Blue Ocean Strategy and you'll see plenty of material that's there. They're all based around a man, their thinking is all based around a man named Wee Willie Keeler. And he was a hitter back in the 1880s, 1890s, professional baseball player. Never hit many home runs, but he was always very effective at getting on base. And they asked him why what he did that made him so successful, and he said, "I hit them where they ain't." And that's the idea behind Blue Ocean Strategy, is to create your strategy in a way where you hit them where they ain't, where the other people are not located. Now, they use the idea of a blue ocean strategy as opposed to a red ocean strategy, and it's just a metaphor that they picked that I think illustrates things pretty well. And in the slide that you see before you, you can see the difference between a red ocean and a blue ocean. A red ocean is the traditional marketplace that's bounded by how people see the existing market, and where competitors go at each other with their stilettos trying to cut each other up, and as a result the water gets very red with the blood from that activity. And a couple of the characteristics of this is, first of all, it deals with a red ocean is where people define the industry that they're in as the existing marketplace. The authors of the book, Blue Ocean People, say what you want to do is to create a different marketplace that is an add-on to the existing marketplace, but it can be looked at in a slightly different way. The main objective in a red ocean strategy is to beat the competition. The blue ocean people say, no, what you want to do is make the competition irrelevant. Now, I think that's an unfortunate choice of words, because competition is always relevant. But the way in which they're conveying this is the idea of being in a segment of the market where there are no competitors, where you set yourself as a distinctly different kind of a product offering. The third thing is to exploit, the third characteristic of a red ocean is you're attempting to exploit the existing demand in the marketplace. And that means that everyone has to fight to be number one or number two, just as Jack Welch attempted to do when he was in General Electric. And this means what you're doing is just changing the size of the slices of a single pie. What the blue ocean people say that you want to do is to create a brand new broader market, people who have not previously been users of the product or product category, and therefore that, again, to help isolate you from the direct competition. The strategy in a red ocean typically either goes on the basis of cost or value. These are the first two generic strategies that we talked about previously. Either companies focus on getting the low cost, low price, or they'll focus on getting a differentiation strategy where they're creating extra value, possibly with a higher price or possibly with the same price. In this case, with a blue ocean, you can break that dynamic and to move in a new direction, and I'll show you how in a minute. And then everything in a red ocean, everything is aligned toward either that low cost, low price, or the differentiated product approach. With the Blue Ocean strategy, they present a very compelling argument that you can do both. So the tools that they use, first of all, let's take a look at this. This next slide shows you a schematic that I actually took out of the BSG slides. And it shows four different categories, four different quadrants. One of them is based on overall, that's the upper left-hand corner, is based on overall low-cost provider strategy, which is the low-cost, low-price strategy that is offering something across a broad market at lower cost. In the upper right-hand strategy is a broad differentiation strategy, again, where you're trying to increase value by differentiating the product, and where you're dealing with a large, broad section of the population, but doing it on the basis of differentiation rather than on the basis of cost or price. In the lower two quadrants, there are just two more variations of the same thing, how one would do it in a focused low cost or a focused differentiation approach. But the main thing I want to show you is in the center of this, there's an oval that says best cost provider strategy. And this illustrates, visually illustrates, where the people with the low cost, low price strategy and the differentiation strategy can attack the best cost provider by either offering a cost and price lower than that best cost provider, or a differentiated product that is superior in its differentiation to the best cost provider. And so just want to point that out. Now, in order to visualize this, the next slide shows what the authors of Blue Ocean say is a 4-action framework. And what this does is to deal with the two dynamics of the low cost, low price and the differentiation strategies. And in this slide, you'll notice in the lower left-hand corner, it says differentiation elements. In the upper right-hand corner, it says low-cost elements. And with this 4-action framework, what they are illustrating is where you want to reduce costs and where you want to eliminate features that are not of value to the customer. And most every product, what happens is what they call feature creep. And over time, you tend to pick up barnacles on the product that increase prices or increase costs at least, but are not necessarily of value to the broad spectrum of people that buy from you. If you look at your iPhone, and I'm obviously an older consumer and I do use the iPhone, but if you look at the iPhone, even the most sophisticated users are probably only using about 5% of the value of that product. There is a need out there for older consumers like myself, and I tried to find a phone like this several years ago and couldn't. I said, I want to get a cell phone where I can make phone calls. I don't want to do games. I don't want to send messages. I don't want to store stuff. I just want to make phone calls. There were no phones available like that. So there is a substantial opportunity to carve out things that are of minimal value to a consumer like myself. And there's a company called Jitterbug that makes a phone with large keys for people with big fingers that does one function, and that is makes phone calls. And this is a case of reducing capabilities and eliminating capabilities to make a product more valuable to a different market than the general broad market. On the other two quadrants here, it talks about raising or creating. And here we can either raise the characteristics of a product in areas where people can't find what they need, and they'd be willing to pay more if there were certain benefits available from the product, or where there are entirely new ideas that need to be added to a product to make it of value to a potential buyer. In the case of the Jitterbug, I think it comes in a regular plastic phone style, kind of like a traditional phone, and it's red in color, and as I said, the buttons are nice and big. So that is how one might go about, how the company could go about reducing and eliminating things that don't have value and increasing or creating values that would be of interest to the customer. The Blue Ocean people then illustrate this, and what they're trying to do is they'll show you in this next slide how costs are driven down, value driven up, and there is a area in the middle which they're going to call value and innovation. And we'll see that here in the next slide, where on the cost side what you're doing is eliminating and reducing the things that customers don't need or are unwilling to pay for. And on the value side, the raising and creating of new values and new benefits for the customer. The same place where the triangles in this case cross is what they call value innovation, and they build the case that this is something that can't easily be taken away once you've developed it. Now, in the next slide, I'm going to show you here an example of how costs can be reduced. And these are all things that have been taken out of the automobile to keep the cost low and to give the customer better value for the dollar. Upper left-hand corner, you see the spare tire. And what we did is we went over a period of time from a spare tire that took a lot of space in the trunk to the donut that could be driven far enough that you can get to a place where you can get a new tire or get the flat tire repaired, to there are some kinds of small tires where there's an air pressure thing that allows you to inflate it and use it. And today in many of the cars you get no spare tire at all. The tires are so good that the chance of you having a flat because the tire becomes worn are so remote that you're better off just getting AAA to come out and pick you up and change your tire for you or get you a new tire, rather than to fiddle with the spare tire in the trunk. Also, as you go across the top of the slide, you can see that the ashtray has been eliminated. That's something that's of no value to the customer. In the far right, the V8 is just not as popular as it once was. We can get good power out of a smaller car. Lower left-hand corner, there's a picture of the console where you have your CD player. Well, CD players are now passé, and we have a docking station for your iPhone instead. Next is the vent wing, and prior to the time we had air conditioner, you could have the 460 air conditioner where you opened the windows, all four windows, and drove at 60 miles an hour and kept yourself cool that way. But the vent wing was important as well because you could change the angle on it and get the air to blow in, along with the insects, to blow in your face. Now, after they put in air conditioners, and that was about 1956, 1957, that vent wing hung around for a number of years before it was eliminated. It had no functional value and it had a high cost. Next to that, you can see the little button on the floor, and that used to be the way you would raise the high beams, and now it's all done on the steering column. And then finally, much to the dismay of young boys just learning how to drive, they've eliminated the bench seat in most of the cars and put in bucket seats instead. So these are ways where features have been removed that the customers didn't want to pay for, but where the value can be increased by not having that extra cost.